My GF went behind my back and let my violent alcoholic father meet our daughter after I went no contact for 13 years. Then my parents hired a lawyer to sue for grandparent rights, so I had to expose their abuse in court to protect my family. My 29 meters girlfriend Gabrielle is 27 and we have a 4-year-old daughter together named Lily. We've been together for about 6 years now. I need advice because I don't know what to do anymore. I had a terrible childhood. My father was an alcoholic who got violent when he drank and my mother never stopped him. She just watched or made excuses for him. I have an older brother named Bruce who is 32 now. We both got the worst of it, but Bruce got it worse because he was older and tried to protect me. My father would hit us with whatever was nearby. Belts, wooden spoons, extension cords. One time he threw a glass bottle that shattered near my head when I was 8. Another time he locked Bruce in the basement overnight when he was 13 because Bruce talked back to him. My mother would just say we deserved it for misbehaving or that my father was stressed from work. Bruce moved out the day he turned 18. He got a job at a warehouse and rented a tiny apartment. He took me with him when I turned 16 because things were getting worse. My father had started drinking even more and I was scared he would seriously hurt me one day. My mother called Bruce a few times saying we were ungrateful and breaking up the family. We both blocked their numbers after that. I haven't spoken to either of them since I left at 16. That was 13 years ago. Bruce hasn't either. When I met Gabrielle, I told her about my parents early on. I didn't go into every detail, but I made it clear that my childhood was bad and that I never wanted contact with them again. I specifically told her I didn't want them knowing about Lily. I said they were not safe people and I didn't want my daughter anywhere near them. Gabrielle said she understood. Her own family is normal. Her parents are nice people who helped us when Lily was born. They would babysit sometimes and they were always good to us. About 3 weeks ago, Bruce sent me a text message. He said he needed to show me something. He sent me a photo that made my stomach drop. It was a picture from our mother's Facebook page. Bruce still checks it sometimes even though he has her blocked on his own account. He uses a fake profile just to keep an eye on what she posts. In the photo, our mother was holding her cat and smiling. But in the corner of the photo, on the couch behind her, I could see a small pink backpack. It was the same backpack Lily takes everywhere. It has a unicorn patch that Gabrielle sewed on after Lily begged for it. I would recognize that backpack anywhere. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I called Lily into the room. I asked her if she had been to a house with a cat recently. She said yes. She described the house and it matched the house I grew up in. I asked her who took her there and she said Mommy did. I asked when and she said it happened a few times. She said the old man and old lady gave her cookies and let her watch cartoons. She said Mommy told her it was a secret and not to tell Daddy. I waited for Gabrielle to come home. She works at a dental office and usually gets back around 6. When she walked in, I asked her to sit down. I showed her the photo Bruce sent me. I asked her to explain. She went pale. She started crying right away and said she was sorry. She said my mother had reached out to her on Facebook back in November. My mother told Gabrielle that my father had been diagnosed with a heart condition and might not have much time left. She said they just wanted to meet their granddaughter once before it was too late. Gabrielle said she didn't tell me because she knew I would say no. She said she wanted to see for herself what kind of people they were. I asked her how many times she took Lily there. She said maybe 6 or 7 times over the past few months. She said at first she stayed the whole time and never left Lily alone with them. But after a few visits, my mother convinced her to run errands while Lily stayed there. Gabrielle said my parents seemed nice and the house was clean. She said Lily seemed happy when they picked her up. She said she thought maybe I was exaggerating about how bad they were. I told her I wasn't exaggerating. I told her my father had hit me so hard once that I couldn't sit properly for a week. I told her Bruce still has a scar on his arm from when my father pushed him into a glass table. I told her my mother never called for help or tried to stop any of it. Gabrielle kept crying and saying she didn't know it was that bad. I told her I had already explained it was bad enough that I went no contact. I told her she should have believed me instead of deciding on her own that I was wrong. Then I asked her the worst question. I asked if she had ever left Lily alone with my father. She hesitated. Then she said yes, once. My mother had asked Gabrielle to help her run to the pharmacy because she couldn't drive anymore. Gabrielle said my father stayed home with Lily for about 30 minutes. She said when they got back, Lily was fine and watching TV. I lost it. I didn't yell but my voice was loud. I told her she had put our daughter in danger. I told her she had taught Lily to keep secrets from me, which is exactly what predators do. I told her I couldn't believe she had gone behind my back for months. Gabrielle started sobbing harder. She said it was a mistake and she was sorry. She said she thought she was doing the right thing by giving Lily a chance to know her grandparents. I told her she had no right to make that choice without me. She grabbed her purse and left. She went to her parents' house. About an hour later, her mother showed up at my door. She said Gabrielle was too upset to be alone and that she needed to take Lily with her so Gabrielle could see her daughter. I said no. I said Lily was staying with me. Her mother got angry. She said I was being unreasonable and that Gabrielle made an honest mistake. She said everyone deserves a second chance and that I was punishing Gabrielle too harshly. I told her this wasn't about second chances. I told her Gabrielle had endangered our child. Her mother said I was overreacting. We argued for a while before she finally left without Lily. Lily heard us fighting. She kept asking why everyone was yelling. She didn't sleep well that night. She kept coming into my room asking where Mommy was. I didn't know what to tell her. I just said Mommy was staying at Grandma's house for a little bit. Gabrielle texted me the next day asking if we could talk. I didn't respond right away. I called Bruce instead. I told him everything. He was silent for a long time. Then he said he wasn't surprised our mother pulled something like this. He said she always had a way of making people believe her. He told me to be careful and to not let Gabrielle or her family pressure me into backing down. I spent the next few days thinking. I took time off work. My boss was understanding when I said there was a family emergency. Lily stayed home from daycare and I kept her with me. Gabrielle kept texting asking when we could talk. Her mother called twice but I didn't answer. Bruce came over one evening after work. He brought pizza and sat with Lily while I tried to figure out what to do next. He told me he would support whatever decision I made but that I needed to protect Lily first. I finally agreed to meet Gabrielle. We met at a park while Lily was with Bruce. Gabrielle looked terrible. She said she hadn't been sleeping. She apologized again and said she understood why I was so upset. But then she said something that made me even more angry. She said she still didn't think my parents were dangerous. She said they had been nothing but kind to Lily and that maybe they had changed. She said people can grow and learn from their mistakes. She said maybe I should consider supervised visits so Lily could still have a relationship with them. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told her my father had given Bruce a concussion when he was 10 years old. I told her my mother knew about it and told Bruce to lie to the school nurse. I told her these were not people who changed. I told her the fact that she still wanted me to let them near Lily after everything I had told her proved she didn't understand the severity of what she had done. She started crying again. She said her parents thought I was being too extreme. She said her father said that grandparents have rights and that maybe I was keeping Lily from family for no good reason. I told her if she really believed that, then we had a serious problem. She said she didn't know what to believe anymore. She said I never told her the specific details, so how was she supposed to know how bad it really was? I told her she should have trusted me when I said they were dangerous. I told her she should have asked me instead of going behind my back. We didn't resolve anything that day. We just went in circles. I left the park and went back to Bruce's apartment to pick up Lily. Bruce asked how it went. I told him it didn't go well. He just nodded. He said he had a feeling this wasn't going to be easy. That night, I got an email. It was from my mother. The subject line said we need to talk. I almost deleted it without reading it, but something made me open it. She said she knew I was upset about the visits. She said she and my father only wanted to build a relationship with their granddaughter. She said they were older now and they regretted the past. She said life was too short to hold grudges. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. She said if I insisted on keeping Lily away from them, they would have no choice but to pursue legal options. She said they had been researching grandparent rights and they had a case. I forwarded the email to Bruce. He called me immediately. He said we needed to talk to a lawyer. He said our parents were serious if they were already threatening legal action. I agreed. The next morning, I found a family lawyer who handled custody cases. I made an appointment for later that week. I showed the email to Gabrielle. She read it and her face went white. She said she had no idea they would do something like that. She said when she visited them, they seemed reasonable and just wanted a chance to know Lily. I told her this was who they really were. I told her they were manipulative and they had convinced her to help them get access to Lily. She started crying again and said she never meant for any of this to happen. I told her we needed to figure out what we were going to do. I told her we might be facing a custody battle if my parents followed through on their threat. She asked what I meant by custody battle. I told her that if we weren't on the same page about keeping my parents away from Lily, then we had a bigger problem. I told her I couldn't trust her judgment anymore. She asked if I was breaking up with her. I didn't answer right away. Honestly, I didn't know. All I knew was that I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. Update 1: I met with the lawyer. His name is George and he specializes in custody cases involving family conflict. I told him everything. He listened and took notes. Then he told me what I needed to do. He said I needed to document everything. Every text message, every email, every conversation. He said I should ask Bruce to write down his experiences growing up in that house. He said if my parents did try to pursue grandparent rights, having documentation would be critical. I called Bruce that night and asked if he would be willing to write a statement. He said yes without hesitation. He said he had been thinking about it anyway. He said maybe it was time someone put in writing what actually happened in that house. Over the next week, he sent me a document. It was 12 pages long. He detailed incidents I had forgotten about. He included dates and descriptions. He even had hospital records from a time when he broke his wrist and my mother told the doctors he fell off his bike, even though it was actually from my father shoving him down the stairs. Reading it made me sick. It also made me realize how much Bruce had protected me when we were kids. I gave the document to George. He said it was solid evidence. He said if my parents filed for grandparent rights, this would go a long way in proving they were unfit. He also advised me to have a serious conversation with Gabrielle. He said that in these cases, having both parents united was important. If Gabrielle testified that my parents seemed fine or that she supported visitation, it would weaken my case. I told him I didn't know if Gabrielle and I could get on the same page. He said I needed to try. I called Gabrielle and asked her to meet me. She agreed. We met at a coffee shop this time. I didn't want to meet at either of our places because I didn't want Lily to overhear anything. Gabrielle looked exhausted. She said her parents were upset with me and thought I was overreacting. She said her mother kept saying that everyone makes mistakes and that I should forgive her. I told her I wasn't trying to punish her. I told her I was trying to protect our daughter. Then I told her about the lawyer. She looked shocked. She asked if I was really going to fight her in court. I told her I wasn't fighting her. I was fighting my parents. But I said that if she was going to side with them or continue to believe they were harmless, then we were going to have a problem. She asked what I wanted her to do. I told her I needed her to send a message to my mother telling her to stop contacting her and to leave our family alone. I told her I needed her to block them on all social media and never speak to them again. She hesitated. She said it felt extreme. I told her it wasn't extreme. I told her it was necessary. She said she needed time to think. I told her she didn't have time. I told her my mother had already threatened legal action and that we needed to be united. She started crying. She said she didn't realize how serious this was. She said she thought she was helping. I told her I knew she thought that, but her intentions didn't change the outcome. She asked if I still wanted to be with her. I told her honestly that I didn't know. I told her that right now, I needed a co-parent I could trust, and I wasn't sure she was that person anymore. We left the coffee shop without resolving anything. 2 days later, she texted me and said she would do it. She said she sent a message to my mother telling her to stop contacting her and that she would not be bringing Lily to visit anymore. She said she blocked both my parents on Facebook and deleted their phone numbers. She sent me screenshots as proof. I forwarded them to George. But then something happened that I didn't expect. My mother responded before Gabrielle blocked her. She sent a long message saying that Gabrielle was making a mistake and that she was being manipulated by me. She said that if Gabrielle truly cared about Lily, she would make sure Lily had a relationship with her grandparents. She said that courts often side with grandparents when one parent is being unreasonable. Then she said that she had already spoken to a lawyer of her own. Gabrielle forwarded me the message. She said she was scared. She said she didn't think my mother would actually go through with it. I told her I had been telling her that from the beginning. I told her my mother didn't make empty threats. Gabrielle said her parents wanted to meet with me. She said they wanted to talk about everything and figure out a plan. I agreed, but I was skeptical. The meeting happened at Gabrielle's parents' house. Her father, Tom, and her mother, Linda, were both there. They started off by saying they understood I had a difficult childhood. But then Tom said that holding on to anger wasn't healthy and that Lily deserved to know all of her family. I told him that wasn't his decision to make. Linda said that Gabrielle had made a mistake but that everyone was blowing it out of proportion. She said my parents seemed nice when Gabrielle described them. I told her that was the point. I told her manipulative people are often charming. Tom said he had heard about grandparent rights and that in our state, grandparents could petition for visitation if they had an existing relationship with the child. I told him that was exactly why I was working with a lawyer. I told him that if this went to court, I had documentation that would prove my parents were unsafe. Linda asked what kind of documentation. I told her Bruce had written a detailed account of our childhood and that we had medical records to back it up. That seemed to change the tone. Tom asked if it was really that bad. I said yes. I said I wouldn't be doing all of this if it wasn't. Gabrielle had been quiet the whole time, but then she spoke up. She said she had seen some of Bruce's statement. She said she didn't know it had been that severe. Linda asked why I never told Gabrielle all the details. I said I told her enough. I said I told her they were dangerous and that should have been sufficient. Tom said that in the future, maybe I should be more specific. I told him there wouldn't be a future issue if people just respected my boundaries in the first place. The meeting ended without a clear resolution, but Tom and Linda seemed less hostile toward me. Gabrielle and I agreed to keep Lily's schedule as normal as possible while we figured things out. I kept Lily at my apartment most nights and Gabrielle would pick her up for her days. We weren't living together anymore, but we also hadn't formally separated. It was this weird in-between state. Then the lawsuit came. My mother filed a petition for grandparent visitation. The paperwork arrived at my apartment. George had warned me it might happen, but seeing it in writing was different. The petition claimed that my parents had established a relationship with Lily during the visits and that it would be harmful to cut off that relationship now. It included photos that my mother must have taken during the visits. Photos of Lily sitting on my mother's lap. Photos of Lily playing with the cat. My mother had been documenting everything. I called George immediately. He said we would file a response. He said we would include Bruce's statement and any other evidence we had. He said the court would likely order an evaluation to determine what was in Lily's best interest. I asked how long this would take. He said it could take months. I told Gabrielle about the lawsuit. She came over that night after she put Lily to bed at her place. She looked at the paperwork and started crying. She said she couldn't believe they actually did it. She said this was all her fault. I didn't disagree with her, but I also didn't say it out loud. She asked what we were going to do. I told her we were going to fight it. I told her I needed her to be completely honest with the court about what happened. She said she would. Update 2: the court process moved faster than I expected. We had our first hearing last week. My mother's lawyer was a woman named Patricia who looked very professional and spoke very confidently. She argued that my parents had established a meaningful relationship with Lily and that cutting off contact would harm her. She presented the photos and a written statement from my mother claiming that I was alienating Lily from her family because of unresolved personal issues. She suggested that I was projecting my own childhood trauma onto the current situation. George presented our side. He submitted Bruce's statement and supporting documents, including the hospital record from when Bruce broke his wrist. He also had a statement from an old neighbor who remembered the police being called to our house multiple times when we were kids. The judge read through everything and then said she needed time to review the case. She issued a temporary order that my parents could not contact Lily or attempt any visitation until the next hearing. That was some relief at least. After we left the courthouse, Gabrielle and I sat in my car for a while. She said she had no idea the court process would be like this. She said hearing Patricia describe my parents as loving grandparents made her feel sick. She said she finally understood how manipulative they were. She apologized again. She said she should have listened to me from the start. I told her apologies didn't change what happened, but I appreciated her finally seeing the truth. That night, my mother sent me another email. She said the court case was unnecessary and that we could resolve this as a family. She said all they wanted was to see Lily on holidays and birthdays. She said if I agreed to that, they would drop the case. She said it would be better for everyone if we avoided a long legal battle. I forwarded the email to George. He said it was a manipulation tactic. He said she was trying to make it seem reasonable so that if I refused, I would look like the bad guy. He told me not to respond. But I did respond. I told her no. I told her she had no right to be in Lily's life. I told her she had lost that right when she enabled my father's abuse. I told her I would see her in court. She wrote back within an hour. This email was different. She was angry. She said I was being selfish and cruel. She said I was depriving Lily of family because I was too weak to move past the past. She said my father had apologized for his mistakes and that I was punishing him forever for things that happened when I was a child. She said I was turning into the kind of person who destroys families. I showed that email to Bruce. He said it was classic behavior. He said our mother always played the victim when she didn't get her way. He offered to come to the next court hearing with me. I told him he didn't have to, but he insisted. He said he wanted to be there. Gabrielle and I started talking more. Not about getting back together, but about how to co-parent through this. She said her parents had finally come around. She said after they saw the court papers and realized how serious this was, they understood why I had been so adamant. Tom called me and apologized. He said he had been too quick to judge and that he should have trusted my instincts. Linda sent a text saying the same thing. We had another hearing 2 weeks later. This time, the judge said she had reviewed all the materials and wanted to hear testimony. Patricia called my mother to the stand. My mother cried while she spoke. She talked about how much she loved Lily and how she just wanted a chance to be a grandmother. She said she and my father had made mistakes in the past, but they had changed. She said they went to church now and that my father had stopped drinking years ago. She said they deserved a second chance. George cross-examined her. He asked her about specific incidents from Bruce's statement. He asked her why she never called the police when my father hit us. He asked her why she told Bruce to lie to the school nurse about his concussion. She said she didn't remember things that way. She said Bruce was exaggerating. George asked her about the hospital record that showed Bruce's broken wrist. She said that was an accident. George asked why she had lied to the doctors about how it happened. She said she was protecting the family. Then George called Bruce to the stand. Bruce described our childhood in detail. He talked about the time my father locked him in the basement. He talked about the time my father threw a bottle at me. He talked about the time he had to pull me out of the house because my father was drunk and breaking things. Patricia tried to argue that these were old incidents and didn't reflect who my parents were now. Bruce said he didn't believe people like that changed. The judge listened to everything. Then she said she needed to issue a ruling. She said that based on the evidence presented, she was denying the petition for grandparent visitation. She said that the documented history of abuse and the lack of any relationship with Lily prior to the secret visits did not establish grounds for legally enforced visitation. She said that both parents were in agreement about keeping the grandparents away from the child and that the court would not override that decision. She said the case was closed. My mother stood up and started yelling. She said the system was broken and that I had turned everyone against her. The judge told her to sit down or she would be held in contempt. Patricia managed to calm her down and they left the courtroom. Bruce and I just sat there for a minute. Then we walked out. Gabrielle was waiting outside. She had taken the day off work to be there even though she wasn't called to testify. She hugged me and said she was glad it was over. I told her it wasn't over. I told her my parents would probably try something else. She said she would make sure they never got near Lily again. Update 3: My mother tried to contact Gabrielle again 2 weeks after the court ruling. She found Gabrielle's work email somehow and sent a long message saying that Gabrielle had been deceived by me and that if she truly cared about Lily, she would reconsider. Gabrielle forwarded it to me and to George. George sent a cease and desist letter to my parents. That seemed to finally stop the direct contact. But then my father showed up at my apartment. I was carrying groceries inside when I saw him standing by the entrance. He looked older than I remembered. He said he just wanted to talk. I told him to leave. He said he wasn't trying to cause trouble. He said he just wanted me to understand that they were sorry. I told him sorry wasn't enough. He said I was being stubborn. I told him I was being a parent. He started to get angry. His face turned red and his voice got louder. I recognized that look. It was the same look he used to get right before he hit one of us. I pulled out my phone and told him I would call the police if he didn't leave. He said I was overreacting just like I always did. I started recording him. He noticed the phone and got even angrier. He said I was just like Bruce, always dramatic and making things worse than they were. He said we had turned out to be ungrateful after everything they did for us. I told him to leave one more time. He finally walked away, but not before saying that I would regret this. I sent the video to George. He said we could file for a restraining order if my father tried to contact me again. I said I would if it happened again. I also sent the video to Bruce. He said he wasn't surprised. He said our father never learned how to control himself. Gabrielle and I decided to make our separation official. We weren't going to get back together. Too much had happened and the trust was gone. We worked with George to draft a co-parenting agreement. It stated that all decisions about Lily required both of our approval. It stated that neither of us would allow contact between Lily and my parents without explicit written consent from the other, which we both knew would never happen. It stated that Gabrielle's parents could continue to see Lily but only under our supervision. Tom and Linda signed an acknowledgement that they understood the terms. Linda apologized to me one more time. She said she should have believed me from the beginning. Tom said he had talked to some of his friends who worked in social services and they had explained how abuse dynamics work. He said he understood now why I had been so firm about the boundaries. Lily has been doing better. She stopped asking about the old lady and old man after a few weeks. Gabrielle and I told her that sometimes adults make mistakes and that we were working to keep her safe. She seemed to accept that. She still asks why mommy and daddy don't live together anymore. We told her that sometimes people are better as friends than as partners. She didn't fully understand, but she stopped asking after a while. Bruce and I have gotten closer through all of this. He comes over for dinner once a week and Lily loves seeing him. She calls him Uncle Bruce and he brings her small gifts every time. Nothing big, just things like coloring books or stickers. He told me he was proud of me for standing up to our parents. He said he wished he had done it sooner. I haven't heard from my parents in over a month. I don't know if they gave up or if they're planning something else. Part of me is always waiting for the next email or the next court paper. But for now, things are quiet. Gabrielle and I have a system that works. We switch off weeks with Lily and we communicate through text about schedules and school stuff. It's not perfect, but it's functional. I'm still angry about what happened. I'm angry that Gabrielle went behind my back and I'm angry that my parents tried to force their way into Lily's life. But I'm also relieved that the court case is over and that my daughter is safe. Bruce told me that's all that matters. He said protecting Lily was the only thing I needed to focus on and that I did the right thing. I don't know what the future looks like. Maybe my parents will try again in a few years. Maybe they'll give up for good. All I know is that I'm not letting them near my daughter. The cycle ends with me. Lily will never know what it's like to be scared in her own home. That's the one thing I'm certain about. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2: My ex-wife and her millionaire partner stole my kids' college money while convincing them I abandoned them. Now they want me back after learning the truth 20 years ago. My ex-wife Diana, 56F, had an affair with Charles, 59M, her co-worker at Anderson and Mitchell Accounting. We had been married for 15 years and had 3 beautiful children, Sarah, 14F, Michael, 12M, and Emma, 10F. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but I thought we were happy. We had our routines, family game nights on Fridays, weekend trips to the lake house, and annual summer vacations to visit Diana's parents in Florida. The discovery of the affair was like a punch to the gut. It happened on a regular Tuesday evening. Diana was taking a shower, and her phone kept buzzing on the kitchen counter. I wasn't the type to check her phone, but the name Charles kept flashing with message previews that made my stomach turn. When I opened the messages, my world collapsed. The texts were explicit and made it clear they had been sleeping together for at least 6 months. I sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, waiting for Diana to finish her shower. When she came down, wrapped in her bathrobe, humming some tune, she froze at the sight of her phone in my hand. She didn't cry, didn't apologize, didn't even try to deny it. Instead, she told me she had fallen in love with Charles and wanted a divorce. Just like that, 15 years of marriage were over. The divorce was surprisingly civil. We agreed on shared custody, split our assets fairly, and I kept our modest 3-bedroom house while she moved in with Charles in his luxury condo downtown. The kids were devastated at first, but Charles had a plan to win them over. Charles was a senior partner at the firm, making 7 figures annually. He started showering the kids with expensive gifts from the very beginning. Sarah got the latest iPhone when everyone else had basic phones. Michael received gaming consoles and designer clothes. Emma got her own horse at the equestrian center where Charles was a member. I couldn't compete with Charles's money. As a high school history teacher, my salary was enough for a comfortable life but not for extravagant gifts. I tried to maintain normalcy during my custody days, helping with homework, attending their events, cooking their favorite meals, and having meaningful conversations. But I watched helplessly as they became more enamored with the lifestyle Charles provided. The change was gradual but unmistakable. First, they started comparing everything to what they had at Charles's house. My home-cooked meals weren't as good as the personal chef's creations. Our local community pool wasn't as exciting as Charles's private beach house. Their rooms at my house were boring compared to their themed suites at his mansion. By the time Sarah turned 16, Charles surprised her with a brand new BMW. I had been saving to buy her a used Honda, but how could that compare? Michael got a $10,000 gaming setup for his 14th birthday. Emma started taking $200 per hour private riding lessons. Every weekend at Charles's house was like a luxury vacation. The kids started making excuses to skip their weekends with me. Sarah had important social events. Michael had special gaming tournaments. Emma had crucial riding competitions. I kept trying to maintain our relationship, but they slipped further away. The final blow came when Sarah got engaged at 23. She called me to say she wanted Charles to walk her down the aisle. Her reason? He's been more of a father figure these past years, Dad. Please understand. I attended the wedding, smiled for photos, and drank myself to sleep that night. Michael and Emma's weddings follow the same pattern. Charles was Michael's best man, giving a tearful speech about being the father he chose. He walked Emma down the aisle in a designer tuxedo while I sat in the back row, just another guest. Each wedding felt like a public reminder of my replacement. I tried to stay involved in their lives. I sent birthday cards, Christmas presents, and attempted to schedule lunches. The responses were always polite but distant. Too busy with work, Dad. Maybe next month. Let's plan something soon. Meanwhile, their social media was filled with photos of family vacations with Diana and Charles, holiday celebrations at his mansion, and fancy dinners at exclusive restaurants. 5 years ago, I met Patricia, 55F, at a teacher's conference. She was a math teacher from another district, and we connected instantly. She had never married, focused on her career instead, and understood the complexity of my situation. We married in a small ceremony, none of my kids attended, all claiming prior commitments. Patricia helped me rebuild my life. I focused on my teaching, started a chess club at school, took up woodworking, and tried to find peace with my children's choices. It wasn't easy, but I learned to live with the pain. Then last month, everything changed. Sarah called, crying, saying she was pregnant with her first child. During the same week, Michael's wife announced their pregnancy, and Emma mentioned her 6-month-old daughter. Suddenly, all 3 kids wanted to rebuild our relationship and make things right. Through mutual friends, I learned the real reason for their sudden return. Charles had been showing his true colors. He made cruel comments about Sarah's pregnancy weight, telling her she was letting herself go. He belittled Michael's decision to follow my footsteps and become a teacher, calling it a waste of potential. He reduced Emma to tears by suggesting she was a negligent mother for returning to work after maternity leave. Now they want me back in their lives. They're sending daily texts, leaving voicemails, and asking to meet. But I'm torn. For 20 years, they chose Charles's money over my love. They let him steal every major milestone in their lives. They ignored my attempts to maintain a relationship. Should I welcome them back? Am I wrong for wanting to protect myself from more pain? Update 1. First, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. The support and advice I received were overwhelming. After reading hundreds of comments suggesting I hear my kids out while maintaining strong boundaries, I decided to meet them. We met at an upscale restaurant last Saturday. Patricia insisted on coming with me, worried about how emotionally charged the meeting might be. When we arrived, all 3 kids were already there, sitting stiffly at a corner table. Sarah's pregnancy was showing, Emma was constantly checking her phone for updates from her babysitter, and Michael kept fidgeting with his wedding ring. The first 20 minutes were awkward. No one seemed to know how to start. The waiter came 3 times before we finally ordered anything. Sarah broke the silence first, tears streaming down her face as she apologized for letting Charles take my place at her wedding. Michael stared at his water glass while admitting they were enchanted by the lifestyle Charles provided. Emma barely spoke, just kept glancing between me and Patricia. Then they started revealing things that made my jaw clench. Charles, it seemed, had been systematically manipulating them against me for years. During their teenage years, he would casually mention how teachers choose to live modest lives, implying I didn't care enough to pursue a better paying career for them. When I'd try to reach out, he'd suggest I was just feeling guilty about not providing them the same opportunities he could. Sarah described how he'd compare my house to his mansion, making subtle remarks like it must be hard living in such cramped spaces during your dad's weekends. Michael admitted that Charles would buy him expensive gifts and then say things like, "I bet your dad never thought to get you something like this." Emma revealed that during her high school years, Charles would offer to make up for anything I couldn't afford. But now Charles's true nature was showing through the cracks of his perfect facade. Sarah told us how he cornered her husband at a family dinner, criticizing his small landscaping business and offering to invest if they followed his business plan exactly. Her husband refused, leading to tension at every family gathering. Michael's story was even worse. When he announced his decision to leave his corporate job and become a teacher, Charles threatened to withdraw the down payment he'd promised for Michael's new house. He called teaching a poor man's profession and suggested Michael was disrespecting the opportunities he'd been given. Emma's voice shook as she described how Charles had become controlling about her daughter. He insisted on buying all the baby furniture but then used it to guilt-trip her about working. He called her selfish for not wanting to be a stay-at-home mom like Diana, and suggested she was abandoning her daughter just like I had abandoned them. Their apologies seemed sincere, but something felt off. When I asked why they never questioned his behavior before, they became defensive. Sarah insisted they were just kids when it all started. Michael talked about how their friends envied their life with Charles. Emma claimed she was too young to understand what was happening. Patricia, who had been quietly observing, asked them a pointed question: "Would you be here if Charles was still treating you well?" The silence that followed was deafening. I told them I needed time to process everything. Their apologies, while possibly genuine, felt convenient, coming only after Charles showed his true colors. I suggested we take things slow, maybe start with monthly family dinners. They didn't take this well. Sarah started crying again, saying she wanted me involved in her pregnancy. Michael mentioned wanting his unborn child to have a real grandfather. Emma asked if I would be interested in regular babysitting duties with my granddaughter. I stood firm. 20 years of rejection can't be erased in one dinner. I agreed to monthly family meals as a starting point, with no pressure for more until I felt ready. They seemed disappointed but agreed. After they left, Patricia pointed out something I hadn't noticed. Not once did they acknowledge the pain they caused by choosing Charles for their weddings. They focused entirely on his recent bad behavior rather than their own past choices. The next day, Diana called. She was furious that I wasn't immediately welcoming our children back with open arms. She said I was being petty and selfish, that a real father would be grateful for any chance to reconnect. I hung up on her. She's been sending non-stop texts since then, alternating between guilt trips and angry accusations. I'm maintaining my boundaries, but it's harder than I expected. Seeing them brought back memories of when they were young, Sarah's ballet recitals, Michael's little league games, Emma's art shows. Part of me wants to forget the past 20 years and embrace them fully. But the bigger part remembers every missed birthday, every rejected invitation, every milestone I watched from the sidelines. At least I have Patricia's support. She reminds me that protecting myself doesn't make me a bad father. That requiring them to earn back my trust isn't unreasonable. For now, we're sticking to the monthly dinner plan. Time will tell if they're truly ready to rebuild our relationship or if this is just a temporary reaction to Charles's behavior. Update 2. I never expected the revelations that came out during our monthly dinners. At our second dinner, Sarah had a complete breakdown that exposed even darker truths about Charles and Diana. Over lasagna, Patricia's specialty, Sarah revealed that Charles had been systematically lying about my financial situation for years. He fabricated an elaborate story about me having a secret gambling addiction that supposedly forced Diana to leave me. According to him, I had gambled away not just our savings but also the kids' college funds. This lie explained away my modest lifestyle and justified Diana's affair in the kids' eyes. The truth was completely different. I had 3 separate college funds set up since the kids were born. Even after Diana left, I kept contributing monthly to these accounts. I never mentioned them because I wanted the kids to focus on their education, not money. I planned to surprise them when college time came. When Sarah heard this, she grabbed her purse and pulled out her old college acceptance letters. She had gotten into several top-tier universities but chose the local state college because Charles convinced her I couldn't help with tuition. Michael sat there, stone-faced, revealing he had wanted to become a teacher right after high school but chose business because Charles said I couldn't support his education. Emma, who had struggled with student loans, learned she could have graduated debt-free. The most shocking part? Diana knew about these college funds the entire time. When the kids chose to live with him full-time, she and Charles somehow gained access to these accounts. They used my savings to fund their lavish lifestyle while telling the kids Charles was paying for everything. Michael completely lost it. He spent 5 years in corporate finance, hating every minute, because he thought he needed Charles's financial support. He only switched to teaching last year, wasting years in a career he despised based on lies. Emma couldn't stop crying when she realized her elaborate beach wedding, which Charles generously paid for, was partially funded by my savings. Sarah just sat there, looking through old photos on her phone, seeing all the evidence of Charles's lies she had missed. Patricia suggested we take a break, but everyone refused to leave until we got the full truth. I went to my home office and returned with a folder containing all the documentation, bank statements, account openings, monthly contributions. 2 decades of financial records proving Charles's stories were complete fabrications. We called Diana right there at the dinner table, putting her on speaker. At first, she tried to deny everything, but faced with 3 angry adult children and clear documentation, she finally broke down. She admitted going along with Charles's lies because she was terrified of losing her lifestyle. She had signed over access to the college funds during the divorce proceedings, claiming it was for the kids' benefit. The kids wanted to confront Charles immediately. Michael had his car keys in hand, ready to drive to Charles's house. But I managed to calm them down. Charles still had significant financial control over Diana, who seemed genuinely scared of his reaction. We needed to handle this carefully. We're working with a lawyer now, trying to trace where exactly the college funds went. The initial investigation suggests the money was transferred through several accounts before being used for various expenses, including the kids' weddings, family vacations, and even the down payment on Charles's beach house. Diana keeps calling all of us, begging us not to take legal action. She claims Charles is under stress from work, that he'll make things right if we give him time. The kids are finally seeing how their mother has been manipulated all these years, or perhaps was a willing participant in the manipulation. Our monthly dinners have become weekly strategy sessions. Patricia makes dinner while we go through old financial records, trying to piece together exactly what happened. The kids are processing their emotions differently. Sarah channels her anger into gathering evidence, Michael wants immediate confrontation, and Emma fluctuates between rage and guilt. The lawyer says we have a solid case, but it will take time to untangle everything. Meanwhile, Charles has started sending expensive gifts to the kids again, probably sensing something is wrong. They're returning everything unopened. The most painful part is watching my children realize how many of their life decisions were based on carefully constructed lies. But at least now we're facing the truth together. Update 3, the final act of this family drama unfolded in an unexpected way. After discovering the truth about the college funds, we expected a long legal battle. Instead, Diana finally left Charles, but for reasons none of us anticipated. Diana discovered Charles was having multiple affairs, including a year-long relationship with her younger sister, Rachel, 48F. She found explicit messages on his iPad while he was in the shower, ironic considering how I discovered her affair 20 years ago. She moved out immediately, taking only her personal belongings, and is now staying with her parents. The moment she left Charles, Diana started acting like the past 20 years never happened. She began calling all of us daily, talking about family dinners and holiday plans. She even suggested we all go on a family vacation to heal and bond. Her sudden shift from Charles's devoted wife to repentant mother was jarring. Last week, she showed up at my house unannounced, knowing the kids would be there for our weekly dinner. She broke down in the living room and confessed to actively participating in manipulating the kids against me. She admitted to telling them I was absent for events I actually attended. She had deliberately misled them about my involvement in their lives, even going as far as hiding birthday cards and presents I sent. The kids' reactions were intense. Sarah, 7 months pregnant, started hyperventilating and had to sit down. Michael, usually the calm one, punched a hole in my drywall. Emma walked out without a word and sat in her car for 2 hours. Diana tried justifying her actions by claiming she was afraid of losing her lifestyle with Charles, that she thought she was protecting the kids from financial instability. I asked her to leave. Patricia helped her to her car while I stayed with the kids. We spent hours going through old photo albums and emails. I showed them pictures from school events they thought I'd skipped, emails about birthdays and holidays they claimed I'd ignored, and records of gifts they never received. The lawyer called yesterday with news about the college funds. We could pursue legal action, but it would be costly and time-consuming. The kids decided they don't want Charles's money anymore, they just want him gone from their lives. Diana keeps sending messages through various relatives, claiming she's changed and deserves another chance. She doesn't seem to understand that 20 years of lies can't be undone with tears and apologies. We're focusing on rebuilding our family without Diana and Charles. Sarah's due in 2 months, it's a boy. Michael's wife is expecting twin girls. Emma's daughter has started calling me grandpa instead of the formal grandfather Charles insisted on. Patricia has turned our Sunday dinners into a weekly tradition, complete with her famous pot roast and homemade apple pie. Diana still tries to contact us. She sent a long email last week about forgiveness and fresh starts. Charles sent his lawyer with a settlement offer, trying to buy our silence about his affairs and financial manipulation. We declined both. The kids are processing their emotions differently. Sarah's channeling her energy into preparing for her baby. Michael started a support group for adult children of manipulative parents. Emma's in the process of legally changing her daughter's middle name from Charlotte, Charles's mother's name, to Patricia. It's not the happy ending Diana wants, where we all forgive and forget. Instead, it's a realistic fresh start. We're creating new memories to replace the ones that were stolen from us. Sometimes I catch myself watching my kids laughing together in my living room, and I feel a mix of sadness for the lost years and hope for the future. Diana can keep her guilt, Charles can keep his money, and we'll keep moving forward. The truth hurt, but living with lies would have hurt more.